And you have to ask yourself, was Elizabeth groomed? Was she isolated? Was she controlled?
The attorney for the mother of 16 children removed from a so-called house of horrors is questioning her mental health. Is Elizabeth Ciders insane? Is she a victim of abuse herself or a perpetrator? Plus, we have an update on Gary Ciders Sr. from his lawyer as questions swirl about images from inside the home circulating online.
Defense attorney Tommy Stalley wrote it in a motion. Counsel believes that the defendant's significant mental health issues would not only affect whether she is competent to stand trial, but would also have affected her ability to understand the wrongfulness of her conduct. That's the official record. That's what the court saw. But here's what the court didn't see. Picture a wedding photograph from 2008. The bride is 15 years old, 7 months pregnant, and standing next to a man she'd known for barely a year. That photograph isn't evidence of love. It's evidence of a transaction. And the transaction was sealed long before anyone signed a marriage certificate. Before we go deeper into what the documents actually show, make sure you're subscribed to True Crime Court. Because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence.
Elizabeth Ciders has been married since she was a teenager. She was just a child, 15 years old, and she gave birth to her first child that same year. And really, she hasn't stopped giving birth since 2008. She hasn't had a break. She's given birth to 18 children since 2008. A set of conjoined twins died the same day they were born back in 2022. Now Elizabeth, who was booked into jail on June 30th on 16 counts of child endangering, along with her mother-in-law, Christina Ciders, and her husband, Gary Ciders Jr., and his father, Gary Sr., are in legal trouble. The child endangering charges are second-degree felonies and carry the possibility of major prison time if they are convicted. All of the Ciders family members have pleaded not guilty. Now, giving birth to 18 children over 18 years is no small feat. A lot of people might want a big family, but 18 kids?
Elizabeth Ciders has given birth to 18 children since 2008. A set of conjoined twins died the same day they were born in 2022. She was booked into jail on June 30th on 16 counts of child endangering, second-degree felonies that carry the possibility of major prison time. Her husband, Gary Jr., his father, Gary Sr., and her mother-in-law, Christina, are all in legal trouble. All have pleaded not guilty. But Elizabeth's lawyer didn't just ask for a competency evaluation. He asked for something else. If she is found competent, he wants her evaluated to determine if she is not guilty by reason of insanity. Not because of what she did, because of what was done to her.
And the attorney representing Elizabeth Ciders has reached that point. He's requesting a competency evaluation for his client. This comes after mental competency exams were requested and granted for Elizabeth's husband, Gary Jr., and her in-laws, Gary Sr. and Christina. But the request for an evaluation comes with an added layer for Elizabeth. This is not just about competency. It's also about possibly laying the groundwork for an insanity defense.
The motion reads, Defense counsel makes this motion in good faith to determine defendant's mental condition at the time of the offenses charged and whether defendant is competent to stand trial. But Stalley has observed things in his meetings with Elizabeth that concern him. He wrote that he is prepared to provide a more detailed accounting of his concerns directly to the court, not to the public. So the lawyer is saying, I've seen something. I can't tell you what it is, but the judge needs to know, and that is where this case stops being about child endangerment and starts being about something else entirely.
Herself a child, 15 years old, goes through 18 pregnancies. I think she lost 2 that were conjoined twins.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to ask yourself, was Elizabeth groomed? Was she isolated? Was she controlled? Was the activities of the family dictated by her husband and the in-laws? She may have been trapped in an environment in what we call coercive control, where she was subject to manipulation, isolation, and didn't really.
The forensic psychiatrist asked the question that the legal system is still trying to answer. Was Elizabeth groomed? Was she isolated? Was she controlled? She married Gary when she was a child, 15 years old. She gave birth to her first child that same year, and then she never stopped. 18 pregnancies in 18 years. Her brother posted on Facebook that she was indoctrinated, that she was brainwashed, that the family had her isolated and controlled. But here's the contradiction: Elizabeth herself, through her lawyer, has said she does not consider herself a victim. So who is telling the truth? The paperwork already knew.
Her as a perpetrator, what we see is that no matter what she was going through, she had a fundamental duty to care for her children and not allow 16 children to live in a 12 by foot 12 room in human waste. But
If you look at Elizabeth as a perpetrator, the prosecution says she had a fundamental duty to care for her children and not allow 16 children to live in a 12 by 12 room in human waste. That's the accusation. That's the crime. But if you look at her as a victim, the defense says that due to intense abuse, control, and manipulation, the choice wasn't completely hers. She may have been trapped in what forensic psychiatrists call coercive control, a pattern of manipulation, isolation, and psychological dependence that made leaving impossible. And that changes everything.
yeah, it tells me that there was a high degree of control over her. I mean, think about this. What it would take to hide these kids, to fly under the radar for this long. Is it something that Elizabeth did by herself? Hard to believe. It seems like it was more of a system that was designed by the husband and the in laws. They had it down to a routine. So I find it hard to believe.
What would it take to hide these kids for this long? To fly under the radar for nearly 2 decades? Is that something Elizabeth did by herself? Hard to believe. It seems like it was more of a system designed by the husband and the in-laws, a routine, a pattern. The prosecutor says the Ciders were hiding the children and causing them serious physical harm. But the attorney for Gary Sr. accuses the Ohio Attorney General of exaggerating. He says the family has received death threats for a case that in no way deserves this attention based on the facts as he has seen them. The paperwork already knew.
In fact, the counter argument to that would be, well, but they made attempts to conceal it, to fly under the radar. So there's some consciousness of guilt there that we need to keep this thing under wraps and hide it from society and from the authorities.
Here's the counter-argument that the prosecution will make. If you didn't know it was wrong, why did you try to conceal it? Why did you fly under the radar? That's consciousness of guilt. That's the evidence that you understood exactly what you were doing. And that is the axis on which this entire case turns. Was she a perpetrator who knew exactly what she was doing? Or was she a victim who didn't have the psychological capacity to understand the wrongfulness of her actions? The answer to that question will determine whether she spends decades in prison or walks free.
Mental illness per se does not mean that you're incompetent or not guilty by reason of insanity. In Ohio, to be found not guilty by reason of insanity, you need to have a mental illness or defect. And because of that mental illness or defect, you are not able to appreciate the wrongfulness of your conduct.
The judge has told the attorneys and the District 9 examiners, that's what they call them, that she wants these evaluations conducted and she wants it done within 30.
In Ohio, to be found not guilty by reason of insanity, you need to have a mental illness or defect. And because of that illness or defect, you are not able to appreciate the wrongfulness of your conduct. That's the legal standard. But a forensic psychiatrist made this clear. Just because you're mentally ill doesn't mean that you're not criminally liable. You can be mentally ill and still be competent. You can be mentally ill and still be criminally responsible. So the insanity defense is a high bar. It's usually associated with use of force, not child neglect or endangerment. But this case is different, because the question isn't just whether she committed the act. The question is whether she ever had the ability to choose otherwise.
Yeah, it's actually surprising to me because to me that would put them on the radar more. That would make someone know that they weren't where they were supposed to be. So you would almost think that they wouldn't register them and they would, and I quote, homeschool them because they don't want to be on the radar of authorities or people that could potentially expose what's going on.
Somebody registered those kids in school. 6 of the older children were enrolled at some point in 2020. Somebody tried to get them into the system. But then they disappeared again. They became truant. They were hidden. And that raises a chilling question. Was that a moment of clarity? A moment where someone, maybe Elizabeth herself, tried to get help? Or was it just another part of the system designed to look normal while hiding something far darker? The judge has ordered competency evaluations for all 4 family members. She wants them done within 30 days. And if Elizabeth is found incompetent, she could be sent to a facility for a year or more while they try to restore her competency. The clock is ticking.
Another part of this, Elizabeth has said that through her attorney that she wants to get out of jail on bail and be reunited with her children, but the county is seeking permanent custody of these children. They're not saying this is temporary. They're saying this is permanent. We're going to seek to get these children into foster homes and potentially have them adopted out. That severs the relationship legally.
Elizabeth wants to get out of jail on bail and be reunited with her children. But the county is seeking permanent custody. They're not saying this is temporary. They are saying this is permanent. They want to place the children in foster homes and potentially have them adopted out. That severs the legal relationship permanently. That signals that what they're seeing in this investigation is so egregious that there's potentially no going back. The state is very leery about terminating parental rights completely. It has to rise to a very high level where the children are in imminent danger. And based on what we know so far, they are not completely unjustified in taking that position.
I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because permanent custody, if the state is taking permanent custody, they will eventually try to find people to adopt those children. That's how it's going to work. And that flags to me, Dr. Bober, that what they're seeing in this investigation is so egregious that there's potentially no going back. Would you agree with that?
That flags something critical. If the state is taking permanent custody, what they're seeing in this investigation is so severe that they believe there is no path back to reunification. And that raises the question, what haven't we seen? What is in the sealed filings? What did the attorney observe in his meetings with Elizabeth that he won't share with the public? The county prosecutor has said previously he was only aware of Gary Sr. and Christina receiving government benefits. But Elizabeth's brother said the mother got the welfare at the end of the year. Buying cars, posting on Facebook. There's a financial element to this story that hasn't been fully explored, and it connects to motive.
And as the prosecutor has said, hidden from the public.
Well, we've seen similar cases that could involve the paranoia about government institutions and government control or indoctrination. It could involve a shared delusion about the outside world and being suspicious of their motives. And it could just be that they wanted to control these kids, that they received some gratification from doing that. So it could be any number of reasons. But again, if there is a psychotic disorder, and again, we
Why would someone want to keep children isolated like that? A forensic psychiatrist offered a few possibilities: paranoia about government institutions, a shared delusion about the outside world, or the simple gratification of control. It could be any number of reasons. But if there is a psychotic disorder, that could fall under the category of mental disease or defect. And that's exactly what the defense is trying to prove. Not that Elizabeth is innocent, but that she was not legally responsible, that she did not have the capacity to understand the wrongfulness of her actions. And if that's true, then the system that failed her might be the same system that now wants to punish her.
It does, but sometimes it can make it worse, because if there is a perverse psychological dependence on some of these other family members, that may cause her to have tremendous anxiety. We may be dealing with someone who, is unable to make decisions on her own, and is so used to deferring to her husband, to her in-laws, that she may completely fall apart without their support. And I use support in quotes.
The forensic psychiatrist made one more observation. If there is a perverse psychological dependence on some of these other family members, that may cause her to have tremendous anxiety. We may be dealing with someone who is unable to make decisions on her own and is so used to deferring to her husband, to her in-laws, that she may completely fall apart without their support. Think about that. She's been in jail since June. She hasn't interacted with the family members who controlled her for 2 decades. And that isolation might finally give her clarity. Or it might break her completely. The paperwork already knew.
Let's say Elizabeth is found competent, but they still find mental illness in the competency evaluation. just because you're mentally ill doesn't mean that you're not criminally liable.
100%. You can be mentally ill and you can still be competent, and you can be mentally ill and you can still be criminally responsible. So mental illness per se does not mean that you're incompetent or not guilty by reason of insanity. In Ohio, to be found not guilty by reason of insanity, you need to have a mental illness or defect.
Let's say Elizabeth is found competent, but they still find mental illness in the competency evaluation. That doesn't mean she walks free. It just means the defense can use that psychological evidence as mitigation during sentencing to argue that due to deep-seated psychological abuse, trauma, control manipulation, and learned helplessness, she doesn't have as much culpability. In other words, yes, the crime occurred. Yes, she committed it. But the system that created her circumstances should be taken into account when determining her punishment. And that's where this case becomes a mirror, not just for the Ciders family, but for how we understand victimhood, agency, and responsibility.
All of this comes after Elizabeth Ciders' brother Jeremy Russell posted on Facebook about Gary Sr., Christina, and Gary Jr. asking for those competency evaluations. Jeremy Russell wrote, "I don't think my sister would play dumb, the rest of the family playing goofy. My sister believed she was in good hands. She thought she was doing the right thing due to them. Them people I have nothing good to say about. Playing goofy, collecting welfare. The mother coached my sister to stay away. They have my sister so brainwashed. The mother got the welfare at the end of the year."
Elizabeth's brother Jeremy posted this on the day of the arrests. "My sister just wrapped her life up due to indoctrination. It is 100% real. And then, they have my sister so brainwashed." He said that his sister believed she was in good hands, that she thought she was doing the right thing, that the mother coached her to stay away from her own family. And then this, "I don't think my sister would play dumb, the rest of the family playing goofy." Her brother is saying she's not faking it. She genuinely believes this is normal, and if that's true, if she genuinely doesn't understand that locking 16 children in a room with human waste is wrong, then what does justice look like?
Strategy.
Elizabeth, as we mentioned, was a child herself when she got married and when she gave birth to her first child. And then she had all of these subsequent pregnancies. 2008, that's when she got married. Then we have this very odd Facebook post from Gary Jr. in 2014. And it suggests potentially that he was trying to control her. He stated that, hey, this is something to the effect of, "This is Elizabeth. If you are putting pictures of me on social media, take them all down." I think we can infer, you and I have been around long enough to know that potentially Elizabeth was not using her husband's Facebook and saying, "This is Elizabeth."
In 2014, Gary Jr. posted something strange on Facebook, a post that appeared to be written by Elizabeth, telling people to take down any pictures of her on social media. But forensic analysis suggests that Elizabeth was not the one using her husband's Facebook account. That post was likely written by Gary Jr., pretending to be his wife. That tells us there was a high degree of control over her. Not just physical, not just psychological. Digital. He was monitoring her online presence. He was controlling what people saw of her. He was isolating her from the outside world, even digitally. And that control didn't start in 2014. It started when she was 15 years old.
Let's say the prosecutor comes to the conclusion in his evaluation of the evidence in consultation with the two special prosecutors he's appointed that Elizabeth, in some respect, was a victim, but still has criminal liability. You still charge her maybe with some crimes and pursue those crimes. Do you make a deal? What do you think happens with that?
If the prosecutor comes to the conclusion that Elizabeth was in some respect a victim, but still has criminal liability, they still charge her. But then the question becomes, do you make a deal? Do you use her as a witness against the other family members? Do you offer her a plea that reflects her diminished culpability? Or do you pursue the full weight of the law against her, treating her the same as the people who controlled her for 2 decades? That decision will define this case, and it will reveal whether the system sees her as a perpetrator, a victim, or both.
That decision.
So you could make a deal, or that psychological evidence could be used as mitigation during sentencing. In other words, this crime occurred, I committed this crime, but due to these factors, due to deep-seated psychological abuse, trauma, control, manipulation, learned helplessness, that I, don't have as much culpability, and that could serve as mitigation during sentencing.
Psychological evidence can be used as mitigation during sentencing. In other words, this crime occurred. I committed this crime. But due to these factors, deep-seated psychological abuse, trauma, control, manipulation, learned helplessness, I don't have as much culpability. That's the defense strategy. Not to claim she didn't do it. To claim she didn't fully understand what she was doing, and to ask the court to recognize that she was a victim long before she ever became a defendant.
Gary Ciders Sr. is out of the hospital, and his attorney, Dorian Baum, he tells me that Sr. was able to be transported to the courthouse to sign his signature bond earlier this week. But Baum says nothing has really changed with the case, and he continues to accuse the Ohio Attorney General of exaggerating when it comes to this case. Baum told me in a statement, the Ciders family and their extended family have all received threats of violence, including death threats from various corners of the internet, for a case that in no way deserved this sort of attention or anger based on the facts as I've seen them. As a result of this, I have had to be extremely careful about providing any more details than necessary regarding the specific care and/or location of Mr. Ciders Sr., particularly given the fragile health and mental condition of Mr. Ciders Sr. Therefore, I am unable to provide you any further information.
Gary Sr. is out of the hospital. His attorney says he was able to sign his signature bond earlier this week. But nothing has really changed with the case. The attorney continues to accuse the Ohio Attorney General of exaggerating. He says the family has received death threats for a case that in no way deserves this attention or anger based on the facts as he's seen them. But here's the problem. We don't have all the facts. The prosecutor hasn't filed an indictment yet. The defense hasn't shared its evidence. The competency evaluations haven't been completed, and the sealed filings, the ones the judge is reading in private, are sitting in a courtroom, invisible to the public. Those documents hold the truth.
Information beyond that. Now, if you want to read more about this case, download our new app. It's called Law and Crime Plus. It's great. Head over to the Ciders family case file. We have every document related to the case posted there. And that's it for this episode.
The county prosecutor has said the people who took images from inside the home could be prosecuted for trespassing. But those images are circulating online. A kitchen, a dirty mattress, writing on the wall that states, "God protect him." The defense says it shows extreme poverty. The prosecution says it shows children being hidden and seriously harmed. Somewhere between those two stories is the truth, and somewhere inside that house, on that street, in those court filings, is the answer to the question that haunts this entire case. Was Elizabeth Ciders a victim, a perpetrator, or both? The filings are public. The docket is online. Go read the motion yourself, and ask yourself this: if a 15-year-old girl marries a man she barely knows, gives birth to 18 children, and spends 2 decades in a house of horrors, whose fault is that? Not legally. Morally, the comments are open. We want to know what you think. If you found this breakdown valuable, like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications for True Crime Court. Because this story is far from over.